Hi guys, I am Tatiana.
I'm Val.
And we are with Risk and Hustle. And today we have our very first guest ever. I'm really excited about this one. But I'm going to read something because this is a special guest. So we have to really, give him a really great intro.
Let's introduce him.
All right. So let's see. This podcast is about risk, responsibility, and the moments in life that force us to grow before we feel ready. It's about the choices we make when there's no safety net and the discipline it takes to keep going when life shows up early. Today's conversation is deeply personal to me. This guest isn't just someone I admire, he's someone I rely on. He's the person I call when I need motivation, clarity, perspective, and someone who helps me think things through. His journey started with responsibility, and instead of being overwhelmed by it, he learned how to move with intention. Let's welcome our very first guest ever, my older brother, SVP of International Sales. Nope, not sales. You're correct. Not sales, guys. It's senior. Go ahead. I'll let you say it. And my older brother, Arthur Ferreira.
I mean, thank you guys. Thank you so much for having me on as your first guest. I'm literally honored. So I appreciate that very much. I don't think I really need to introduce myself because that was just an incredible introduction. I don't think I could really beat that.
Well, let's correct the title because I think it's important.
You always mess it up. I mean, I always ask him, I still don't know what he does.
I know. I think we talk about what you actually do. My daughter will say that he makes squishmallows.
Yeah, he's the Santa Claus because he gives the toys all the time.
Yeah. I definitely don't make squishmallows. I work for the company that created Squishmallows. It's called Jazzwares. But obviously, it's not about the company, right? It's about, this conversation, which I think is super important to have. And it's so exciting to see what you guys are doing with Risk and Hustle. I think it's extremely important to put out your perspective as business owners out there and give people inspiration, because the same way you're saying that, you look up to me, I look up to you guys, and I'm extremely proud of you guys first and foremost because I've been in a part of your journey since the beginning. Right?
Definitely.
From when you guys started dating to now 20 years later, where you guys have been able to build together it's actually incredible, and it's inspiration, I believe, for a lot of people out there.
Well, I was really excited. I never thought you would say yes to this, to be honest. So we're in Michigan for Christmas. And when he said that he's willing to do it, I'm like, Val, pack up the equipment. We're doing, and I mean, how cool is this office? Like, how can we not? This is a perfect podcast studio. So
it's kind of funny because working from home became a thing during COVID,
right?
But I've been working from home for 15 years, right? So I like to say that I made working from home cool before it was actually cool. Right. So I spend a lot of my time, or as you guys know, most of my time, flying. Right. As you mentioned, being an international business, I'm doing over 150,000 miles a year. Right. So
that's insane.
Over 100 nights out. Right.
Yeah.
So those are the sacrifices that, that I make in my life, to be able to, provide and have a good career and also take care of my family.
Yeah, and it's not easy.
So when you come home, you got to have a good office.
So I got to have a beautiful office when I'm home. So absolutely.
So I wanted to start with asking you, how are you doing? Because I know we had a conversation last week, and you always ask us how we're doing, and we're always telling you our stuff. And I think when we never truly ask you, and I think I'll ask you how are you? But then you'll tell us, oh, it's been a tough year, but we never really get into it. So this is your time. This is about you. This isn't going to be about Val and I or Boost Bowls or anything else.
I think everybody heard our story already.
I know. So this is your journey from the start. I want to hear your risks. I mean, we know your crazy hustles, but I think you have such an amazing, inspirational story. And if we can, inspire one person, this is really what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, look, absolutely. First of all, thank you for asking me how I'm doing. Yes, I'm doing great. Listen, I think when we put life in perspective, right? It's been a very tough year. I don't think I'm the only person out there that has had a tough year. But at the end of the day, you look around, I'm blessed. I have a beautiful family. I have a great career. And yeah, like just we all go through challenging times, right? But to your point, I think our entire life has been a challenge, right? From the moment I came to the US in 1992, at 8 years old, we went through so many obstacles. But I think one of the things that this year made me really just think about a lot. Well, actually, there's two things that this year made me do. Two things that I really thought about a lot. One is you have to take care of yourself first. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's super important. And I think I use the analogy of like when you're on a plane and the first thing they tell you, if something ever happens, you put your oxygen mask on first
before your kid or anybody,
anyone else, because that's the only way that you can then help, others. Right. Because I think people like us and, in our stance in life, we are caregivers, right? Like we are caretakers, right? Like we're constantly being the ones that have to do for all in a way.
Absolutely.
Right? Regardless of, my wife, who obviously also works extremely hard and, and does an amazing job, not just with her career, but also, taking care of the household, especially as I said earlier, with the sacrifices that I make. We still have to take care of ourselves first, right? So that's number one. And then number two, and it's something that I talk a lot about with my team and the people that I work with, it's about see the human being, not the human doing. I think there's a big difference. A lot of times,
I like that.
Yeah, a lot of times when we look at people, we look at individuals and they're, having a bad day or whatever, and we're looking at that person and what they're doing and how they're acting. But we don't see them as human beings. Like we don't know if that individual that we're talking to just lost someone that's dear to them and they're just sheltered and they don't want to say anything.
Right.
Or you don't know what they have going on in their lives and whatnot. Right. So that's where the whole like, how are you doing came along with me.
Yeah.
It's because we're constantly talking about ourselves and the things that we're doing, but we don't realize that sometimes just reaching out to someone to ask them how they're doing so that they can have a platform and feel, comfortable enough to open up and share things that they have going on in their lives, you actually might end up helping them.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I always say that. And that's my motto. I've been saying it for a while, is just, see the human being, not the human doing.
Right. I think you're the first person I always call when there's anything major happening. So it's just easy. You've been that person. And I think not just to me, to a lot of people. So why do you think that is? Why are you the one that we feel comfortable going to, and especially for business advice,
Yeah, I mean, listen, like I wouldn't say everyone does. I would actually think for you, I'm your older brother. So I think that's, probably first and foremost, like we're family. I think I've been through many things in my life where, when I look at myself, I go back to 2003, 4, 5, I was selling shoes, women's shoes at, Aldo and, that was my life. But I made sure that I continued to work hard to be able to get to whatever was going to be out there for me, right? So that opened up what I always say to my kids, actually. It's like sometimes working in retail, working in a mall, it's so important because you learn people skills, you learn how to communicate with individuals from different genders, different races, different age groups, demographics. Like you're just dealing with so many different people, and you just pick up so much knowledge. So that you can then take that and bring it to whatever that next thing may be, right? So for me, the next thing was, working for a European company, which sold very, very high-end strollers. Actually, no, I'm lying. Before that, I went to Melissa & Doug. Sorry, so that's right. Sorry, I'm lying. I'm already forgetting about this. So yeah, I went to Melissa & Doug, which was a toy company in Connecticut, right? And that's kind of how it started and kind of got me into the whole toy business and toy world, right? Was that. But it wasn't easy, right? Like the things that I had to go through in order to get there and so forth. I don't want to get ahead because I know there's probably a lot that we're going to talk about.
I actually want to start a lot with our early days. Yeah. We really didn't grow up with much. I was 4, you were, like you said, 7, 8. I think when we moved to the U.S., We went to school, moved to Danbury, Connecticut. How did it feel walking into school and not speaking English?
Scary.
Right.
Right? Scary because like anything in life, we always fear the unknown.
Yeah.
Right.
But
and I think
I feel like you were always super confident though.
Yeah, I think you're right. But I think it's the confidence is what you put out to the world. But it doesn't mean that internally I wasn't scared. I wasn't anxious, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just human nature. You know, you're talking about, like you said, an 8-year-old kid and, walking into King Street Elementary School in Danbury, right? Danbury, Connecticut, and not really knowing what I was walking into. And the only thing at the time that we really knew about the United States was, Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan, and Mickey Mouse. Right? So the only thing we knew from Brazil.
35 years ago, Danbury, Connecticut looked very different. I mean, there was not many Brazilians. I remember my class personally, I didn't have any. So only my ESL teacher, I think you had.
I had one, right? I had one, which was a young woman, or a little girl at the time, but it was a Fernanda, who was in my class, obviously.
Which you still know.
Yeah, which you still know to this day.
That's funny because when I came, there was a lot of you. Like 1999, I think, like in
that was Rogers Park.
Rogers Park ESL class majority were Brazilians. I think there was 2-3 Albanians in there, and everybody else was Brazilians.
Especially, I think the King Street area at that time really was not diverse.
No, I mean, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but I think the perception for me at the time was like, King Street, that area around there was more affluent, right? Like there was, I remember seeing like a lot of those big homes, and I used to think to myself, oh my gosh, like Kevin from Home Alone lives there.
Yeah.
Those houses,
that looks like that colonial style and everything.
Isn't it crazy that we all have that picture in our head that with that movie Home Alone? Because that's all I used to think about. Is like coming to America and seeing houses like that, and it's just like, having that lifestyle. Yeah. It's insane that.
And you thought every family was like that in the U.S.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, and it's like, I still remember to this day, like talking about the name Kevin from that movie. Well, actually, the first American friend that I remember having was a kid named Kevin Nisley. Like I never forget, walking into, 3rd grade, and he was actually the only kid that really like walked up to me. I didn't understand anything he said, but, but he grabbed my bag and helped me put it into like the cubbies and whatnot. So he also went on to become a really good friend, as we grew up together, through middle school, we played soccer and, through high school and whatnot. Have lost touch with him over the years, of course. I live in Michigan now. And
do you ever see anything on social media?
I spend about 15 minutes a week on social media.
I know, I get it.
I'm the worst person to ask about that.
There's a story from probably you were in like 5th grade or something with the Michael Jackson jacket.
Yeah, I think it actually was 4th grade. So
was
4th grade, fourth grade, we had to sing that song "Heal the World" in, I think it was choir or music class or whatever it was, right? Yeah. And I remember at that time I was like so obsessed with Michael Jackson, and we had a little bit of like a.
I didn't know this story.
Well, there you go.
We had a little bit of like a talent show type of thing in class. And like I dressed up as Michael Jackson and whatnot, with clothes, of course, that, we got at Salvation Army.
Yeah. Right? That leather jacket that you had.
Well, I don't even think it was leather. I think it was definitely pleather for sure, But and just, try to like emulate someone that, again, right, coming from Brazil, that was like someone that we kind of all looked up to, right? Like he was the king of pop and he was this, greater than life individual, and, we loved his music.
But at that point, you didn't really speak a lot of English, right?
I spoke no English.
But he knew the song.
But that's what I mean. You still got up, like put on your jacket, and you had that confidence to do it. So I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah, absolutely. And also I think it's about the comfortability that the classmates at that time. Because honestly, I said Kevin was the only one that really walked up and whatnot and said hello. Right. But the reality is, like, I don't recall ever any bullying or anything like that. Yeah, I think everyone's always very gracious. Yeah. Ended up making very good friends like right away and whatnot. And what it also did though was it pushed me to learn to speak English, right? So going to ESL class, we all remember Miss Nunn from ESL. Like she was our teacher at King Street, and then she went on to I think Rogers Park or even the high school. I don't remember, but ended up learning English in about 6 months.
You're pretty quick.
I was pretty quick too. I mean, I'm still learning, but
well, it's always easier as kids, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
God. I had a question, totally forgot, but we'll get back to it. What was your first job ever? Actually, now I remembered. Hold on, before we go there, because you were talking about bullying. And I have this, I know you got suspended, I think, in high school at one point, but you were defending somebody.
Yeah. I mean, look, it was from what I remember, there was some kid that was throwing food, I believe, at a disabled kid.
Yeah. I remember hearing that.
And I remember just being so furious about it, and I think I said something like, why don't you throw it at me or something? And he did, and I got up and just kind of shoved him.
But I just think that's something we always teach our kids too about bullying. Like I don't want them to be bullied, so I think protecting yourself, but then also seeing somebody that couldn't protect themselves and you standing up for them.
Yeah.
And I know at that time, mom and dad were probably pissed for a second, but then once you actually hear what happened, it's ridiculous.
I think the principal said it, right? The principal was like, look, you did the right thing, but unfortunately you didn't do the right thing. Right? Like,
I think nowadays we probably would fight more as parents and would have not allowed that suspension to happen.
Yeah, probably. Probably. But like, listen, at the end of the day, I saw something that I thought was wrong. And, I would hope that anyone in my shoe would have done the same thing because that's the right thing to do. And, I also know that, that individual, I'm sure at the time when you're a kid, you're not really realizing what you're doing. Like none of us really know what we're doing when we're kids, We think it's like, oh, it's cool to do that or it's okay to do that. But the reality is that it's not.
It's not cool at all. It really affects somebody. And that's why I think there's a lot of kids nowadays with so many, mental health issues because of that. I think the bullying is still happening so much. So I wish more people would stand up. And I think our kids should know that.
I'm personally glad that I'm not growing up today. Right. Because I think those things are.
I think it's getting worse. Yeah.
Right?
Because now social media and everything else.
Which is sad because I thought it would have gotten better because everyone's more educated about what bullying could really do to somebody. But it's just not.
Well, I think it's given a platform to individuals to do good, but it's also given a platform to individuals that potentially wouldn't do something in person or wouldn't say something in person to someone and they just hide behind their phones or their keyboards, whatever it may be. Right. So, it's sad. It's unfortunate.
It is.
It's the good and evil that I think we all deal with on a day to day with internet and phones and this and that, and having kids obviously is very scary for us, right? To think about these things.
Yeah.
What was your first job?
So my first job was JCPenney. I don't even know if they're still around. Do you guys know?
I think so.
Are they still?
I think we still have our JCPenney.
Yeah, I think we still have our JCPenney. I think it's still at the same place.
The one you worked
at. Wait,
I
didn't know that was your first. I thought it was. Wasn't it? Express. I thought it was Express.
No,
I didn't know it was
JCPenney was like. I mean, I was like 15 or 16, whatever you could. I think it was 15 even. Like I think it was funny because I used to work at a JCPenney lamp department, so all my friends used to call me the genie, right? Like Fabio and all those guys, right? Just call me the genie, right? So, and then from there I worked at Sears, and then from Sears I went to.
Wow, you had a lot of jobs.
Well, like you're a kid, right? These are all like high school jobs, and we went to Sports Authority, which is no longer
you're
around.
right.
Sports Authority.
Yeah.
And then from there I went to Bed Bath & Beyond.
Yeah.
So,
what was your first, I guess, bigger title when you got promoted into something a little more than just being a regular employee?
I think my first bigger title was actually when I started working with La Pietra, which Val, I know you worked at La Pietra, right? Like, I came in as kind of like a sales manager, for them.
But before that, you were store manager at Aldo. You had Johnson and Murphy.
I think Johnson and Murphy.
Was that before? That was all before La Pietra.
Man, I can't even think anymore because it's been so long. You're right.
I think it was all before La Pietra.
Yeah, you're right. I think
that's
before
a pretty big title.
Yeah, you're right. I was assistant store man. Well, first, actually, okay. So from John, not from John's, from Bed Bath & Beyond. Yes, you're right. Because I moved to Florida. Was going to school in Florida. Then I moved back up to Danbury. When I came back to Danbury, I started working at Women's Express. At the time, it was like Women's Express, and it had structure across. Remember, which ended up becoming like Men's Express, right? Structure. So I was working there just regular or whatever, and then like within I think a couple months, they promoted me to the women's fashion expert. Yeah, that's funny, right? Like, I was literally
giving women fashion advice.
Like literally, right?
Yeah.
Like just
how did that happen? That's what I want to know,
dude. I don't know. It was like I was doing such a good job for them, I guess.
Here, try this on.
Yeah, and actually, I remember going in the back talking to the manager there, and he was just like, "All right, you're gonna get a promotion. You're now going to make $9.75 an hour." And I'm like, yes. Like I think I was making like $7.50 at the time.
Right.
So I'm like,
a fashion designer.
Yeah, like $9.75, and I was like the women's fashion expert. And I think it became that way because I was like, I became one of like the top salespeople there at Women's Express. And then that's actually from that experience is how I met the store manager at the time from Aldo.
And she recruited you, right? She made an offer.
She made me an offer, and then you're right. And then I became the assistant store manager at Aldo Shoes. And then worked with them for a while, and then that's when I finally got the opportunity to have my own store working for a company called Johnson & Murphy.
Now, did they recruit you as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so Johnson & Murphy, so what happened was, at that time at Aldo, I was actually transferred from the Danbury Mall to the West Farms Mall, because West Farms was like one of their top stores, right? It was like the traffic, it was just a lot busier and whatnot. So I went to that store, and someone from Johnson & Murphy, I think the regional manager and whatnot, like came through Aldo or whatever, and he recruited me from Aldo. And then I finally had my own store over there at West Farms Mall. Yeah,
so you were commuting.
Yeah, so I was commuting. I was living in New Milford at the time, so I was commuting from New Milford to West Farms.
Right.
And then from there, he gave me the Stanford store because Stanford was actually at that time for Johnson & Murphy, it was bigger than even West Farms, which makes sense if you think about it. Stanford, you got all the executives, right? Because Johnson & Murphy is very high-end shoes, right?
Right.
So the executives going into New York and Greenwich and all that area.
Is that store still around?
You would know. Well, Johnson & Murphy's definitely still around.
It is?
Oh, yeah.
Aldo's not in Danbury anymore, but I know there's still some, but they did.
Not too far.
So let's get back a little bit. So let's just a little bit. So you're in college, you're 19, right? And you find out you're going to be a dad. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was, obviously a shock, right? When you're 19 years old, and I was dating someone at the time that was older, and we had Julian, who's now 21 years old, right? So he's a grown man now.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, the feeling at the time was a feeling of like, oh my gosh, what did I do? At 19, my parents, came to America to give me a better life and to provide us with a better life and opportunities.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden in my mind, I'm like, am I throwing everything away?
Right.
For a second.
Yeah, of course. You're 19, all that. So you're in college.
It goes through your head.
So I know you ended up writing mom a note.
Yeah.
Instead of just talking to her in person. Why did you decide to write that note? And I actually forgot about the note, but I remember this all came up recently in one of our chats. So why did you write that note?
Well, I think similarly to like how things are today with text messaging, right? Sometimes like we realize that when we're trying to get the right words out to people, it's easier sometimes to text because maybe when you're having a conversation, individuals don't want to listen. They don't take things the way that you want them to take it.
Yeah.
So at the time, we didn't have like texting, right? So I felt like a written letter would be the best way to do it. And it was, to your point, like it was funny. I just asked mom for that letter.
She has it.
She sent it to me. Yeah, she sent it to me. Because I wanted to read it.
She still has that letter?
She has the letter.
That's crazy.
Yeah, because I wanted to read it and it was like I read it and it was, first of all, it was just like extremely horrible grammar. It's just like terrible. But
what was some of the big things that you can mention that you wrote in the letter, basically?
I mean, the gist of the letter was like, I'm not going to let this situation, meaning like becoming essentially a teen parent, derail me from doing what I would always wanted to do, right? When I always kind of promised my mother to do. Yep. Now, maybe I wasn't going to become, a brain surgeon. Like I, always.
You did promise her that at one point in your life.
Said, right?
She wanted you to be a doctor.
Yes.
Yes, for sure. Which, look, a lot of parents out there want their kids to be doctors, right? Which is nothing wrong with that. But I just wanted to make sure that I didn't fail her, right? Because I think to me, Tati, like mom for me is actually like my inspiration is really her, because I think that her determination and her positivity and outlook in life is something that today at 41, like I still am thriving and trying to get to, because she's always seen the glass half full, like no matter what, right?
The energy and the like positivity that mom has is like not like anything else.
Like no matter what.
Right.
Like no matter what. Like no matter what the situation is, right? So for me, it's like I always look at that, and I always looked at her work ethic, and the same thing with dad, right? Like dad, he's never been ambitious like mom is. Right. But he's never missed a day of work in his life. Yeah. Right. He was like very consistent and whatnot. He just wasn't that type to go get it.
But once he had it, he worked his
steady
butt off. Like he just worked.
Yeah. So we looked at that, and we just, I'm sure you did the same. Like I looked at that and was like, okay, like, here are these two individuals who basically sacrificed themselves to bring us here to America to give us a better life and a better opportunity. And like when that whole thing happened with, with Julian, I felt like, oh my gosh, like
a little bit of a disappointing.
I'm like, oh man, I'm letting them down. Like, well, this is terrible. But then, you push through things and you try to make things better and you work harder and here
I think it pushed you harder. I mean, I remember at that time, that's when I met you, and you just had this baby and you were running around, you were like trying to figure out what you're going to do next, and you were just so humble that you helped me. I remember, you helping me. You're like, hey, where you working? And you're like, why don't you come and try this? I'm working at this place. Come and work there. And I remember coming in there, and you guys were just so humble and just thriving there. Like the energy just was amazing. Just learning how to like basically talk to people and sell and everything like that. That taught me a lot. Like, I mean, I'll tell you all the time, I learned so much from you. Like, being in that place, I think it taught us all how to really deal with people.
You're talking about La
Pietra, yeah. Being like working there together. You remember it was just, I think to this day, for me, it was a fun job. It was a lot of work, but that's when I learned basically everything. You were just...
Well, I mean, I think you...
on the go.
You're just amazing at going in somewhere and just structuring things. And you didn't work at Boost Bowls, but you helped me structure so many things. I mean, I remember in the beginning days, and you're telling me like the Excel spreadsheets that I still call you about, and I still use one that we developed maybe like 8 years ago.
I mean, he knew
just like
how
with
to do
projections and everything.
Everything. I don't know how you learned all that. I don't know how you learned even. I think you just have it in you though, because even talking to people, I would sit behind you, and just watch you sell to these people things that I would just be like, wow.
And it
like,
didn't even feel like he was selling.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
He wasn't selling. It was just more like just talking to them. It would be like in seconds, and then he would sell something like kitchens, like big kitchens, and because that's what we sold at the time, like granite, and just watching you like talk to these people. I remember even when you left, I was like, oh, now it's my time to shine. I got to keep up and get on that. And I would use that method the same way on selling, because just watching you do that was...
Do you think that was your first, like, I mean, all jobs, I'm not going to say real jobs, because I think every job is real, but one that really like structured you in the position that you were able to grow into?
Yeah, I think every job that we do always helps us grow, right? I think you could never take even bad experiences.
Yeah.
You could say that it helped you grow, and actually most of the time the bad experiences are the one that actually pushes you and helps you grow more. And I'll get a little bit to that in a minute. But like going back to La Pietra, like, first of all, like, I'm working with my best friend, right?
Yeah.
And they already had a great business. What they didn't have, and this is just like, again, my opinion at the time, was a little bit of structure, right? And just kind of, putting things in place. And, sometimes I equate it to like building a house without a foundation.
Yeah.
It's impossible, right? And when you have a good business sometimes and you're growing, it's hard to then go back to build a foundation if you haven't started it and you haven't done it from the get-go.
Yeah.
And to a point where there are many businesses out there that they grow so fast and so quickly without a strong base that they don't succeed.
They don't succeed,
right? And sometimes like you have to then just like either you got to tear it down and rebuild,
right?
Because again, once you build a house without a foundation, you can't just add a foundation after. Right? So I think that's kind of what I looked and try to help. With Fabio and La Pietra at the time was like just building this strong foundation for them to have success. And I worked there. I can't remember how many years it was now. Maybe 4 or 5 at the time, or
I think you were like more. 5 years. And
5 years, right? And I'm super proud of that job. And working working with your best friend, first of all, is like, every day is, it's great, right? Because I never forget, Fabio and I getting in the cars and, just going knocking on doors, going door to door, going to every single builder, every single architectural firm, like everywhere, right? At the time, I remember Fabio's little Audi A4, right? Like that, that thing got its use, and it was just fun, but we were also building, we were working hard towards something.
How did you leave? Because right before La Pietra, you were at Johnson & Murphy.
Yeah, so I had Johnson & Murphy, and then I left Johnson & Murphy and went to La Pietra.
How was that opportunity presented to you?
I think, to be honest, I don't remember. I think maybe we have to ask Fabio. I think me and Fabio just in conversation was like, we were like having discussions, and he brought it up, I believe, like, hey, come be with my sister. Yeah. Because at the time, his sister
was running it.
Yeah, was really the one running it. So him and I, we went there. We met with his sister. I remember actually meeting with her, and the whole meeting was in Portuguese, which, my Portuguese for business is terrible, right? Yeah. So I'm kind of saying things sometimes that, wasn't as like articulate from a Portuguese perspective, right? Because I have a Portuguese of an 8-year-old, right? So anyways, we figured it out, and we worked, it worked out. So, yeah.
And then, so I think you actually had Julian already at that point once you went to La Pietra.
Sure.
And then what was the opportunity that happened that you decided to leave La Pietra?
So at that time, I had already gotten married, right? I had gotten married, and I think my second child, like Gabriella, was on the way. And at that time, I just felt like, okay, what's next for me? Like, I need to, as always, we were always trying to chase money.
Yeah. Right.
And at that time in particular, when you have a kid, you already have a kid, you have another one on the way, you're newly married, I was definitely chasing money, right? Which I learned later on in my life that you don't chase money. You chase opportunities. And that's kind of how I've lived by the last 15 years. But at that time, that's what it was. And, and that's why I left. I left La Pietra, and that's when I went to Melissa and Doug, which was my first experience with the toy industry.
Yeah, and really in, I guess, the corporate world, right?
And the corporate world, even though they were like, people used to wear pajamas to work there. So
that was a crazy job. I remember that, like walking into that and seeing you guys just.
Well, we went for interviews, and just their interviews was super intense to get into that company.
Very, and when I talked about sometimes the bad experiences are the ones that you learn the most from. I think my time, which was about almost 2 years there, was probably one of the worst times in my career. And it's because, first of all, I was very good at the job. Like, I became very good at it. But the Groundhog Day approach where, every single day you're coming in and you knew exactly what you were doing. You had your call logs. And it was almost like the Wall Street of toys, right? Where you're on
was it the expectations of them, or like what do you?
Yeah, so I was in charge of managing. At first, we were managing like you have a book of business that they give you, and you're managing like specialty accounts, right? So you're calling on mom and pop shops, you're calling on small little Hallmark stores in the middle of like Des Moines, Iowa.
Did they give you the list?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you had the list there and your call log, and you had to literally make calls all day long, and you were only allowed 1.5 minutes in between calls, right? So and they would listen in on your calls to see how you were talking to customers, what you were doing, and whatnot. So that kind of put me in a bad situation where I started to feel very unhealthy. It was like the first time in my life that I was like, oh my God, like I don't feel good about this job. Like, yeah, I'm making more money and whatnot, and I'm able to provide, but I just didn't feel good, right? It was like doing the same thing. And I also felt like my talents were not being utilized in the right way.
Right.
Because I also wasn't loving what I did, right? And you guys know when you love what you do, you're going to succeed even more.
They promoted you a couple of times though within that company,
didn't they? There was never any really promotions their promotions were giving you money. Yeah. They gave me multiple increments of money throughout the time I was there.
And I think that's what makes you get like sucked into it, because you're like, oh, I just got this raise
but
again.
Still kept you in the cubicle box, which
you still exactly.
I to this day I don't understand. I would never ever want to. I don't care how much money you're making to work on a tight place like that. I don't know how people do it. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's insane. To me, that was the first thing when I walked in there. Yes, it looked fun because you guys are like throwing footballs and everybody's on pajamas and toys around or whatever. Mm-hmm. But then I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like, can you imagine doing this sitting on a what was that, like a 3x3 or whatever?
Yeah, it was just a cubicle. It was just.
Every day the same thing.
It was a great company, but it just wasn't the right fit for me, right? I just felt like, this is not what I want to do. Like, I don't want to sit here and do this for 10 years, right? And I would look at some of the guys there that were there for 10 years, and I'm going, okay, I don't want that to be me in 10 years.
Yeah. Right. How long were you there for?
I think 2. I think I was there for 2 years.
And then when you left, how did you decide on your next job?
Well, so then this opportunity came, and we talked about it earlier because I jumped way ahead. But there's this European company called Stokke that I never really even heard of.
It was the coolest strollers.
Right,
we all got strollers.
I had no idea what they were, but they happened to have one of their offices or one of their headquarters here in the U.S. was out of Stanford, and one of the guys that I had met at Melissa and Doug. I don't remember if he like applied for the job or he was referred and he didn't really want to do it. So then he asked me if I would be interested in doing it. And I said, yeah. I said, okay, let me go take a look at it. I met with them, and that was actually really a great company, right? For one, like their European companies are like very, very well structured and organized.
That was a Bentley of strollers. I remember when we got that stroller.
I know, it was perfect timing. You started that. I was pregnant. I'm like, yes, I get this beautiful stroller.
How long were you there?
I think I was there, 3 or 4 years.
Because see, that's what's crazy to me is that I still think when we talk about these strollers, I still think you're there. Because I just don't know. You jumped, from like that to Twister.
And then there was the other stroller company. Right, Yo-Yo, or was that with that?
That was after. That was when I left Stoke and I started my own company. Right, when I started Lux Group.
Yes.
Right, so that's when that came about. So when I started Lux Group, when I left Stoke and started Lux Group, I kind of figured like, okay, let me just try to find these multinational companies that at the time wanted to do business in Latin America, because that was like my specialty at the time, was focusing on LATAM, and I was able to connect with a lot of people. Make a lot of connections, go to a lot of trade shows, meet a lot of companies, a lot of individuals, and I happened to meet these guys who were at the time the creator of the Babies and Yo-Yo. Yeah. So I remember they flew me out to Hong Kong. I met with them and whatnot, and then we agreed to work together to develop their business. Which, by the way, I think Stokke bought them.
I saw that.
Yeah.
That's
actually
crazy.
For your sister when I was looking to buy the cover for the Yo-Yo, because I still have it.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy how life just, you think about it, like you work for this company that went to work to that company and that company bought that company.
But I feel like Arthur was always great at making connections. You always made sure you spoke to people.
People's person.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, relationships are everything, right? And I think none of us, we don't know, what tomorrow's going to bring. So we can't burn bridges, and we have to be.
I say that all the time.
Yeah, we have to just be always mindful of that, and think about, okay, like how much relationships do I have, or how many do I have? You know, who do I need to connect with? And you through your career, you build a book of relationships, right? Be it on LinkedIn nowadays, which obviously a lot of people have. I remember at the time I used to collect like major amounts of business cards, right? Because you never know.
Yeah, you never know.
And I made a lot of really good connections, and that's what allowed me to start Lux Group USA, right? Which kind of was the first time, which was scary. It was the first time that I didn't have a guaranteed paycheck. Right?
Yeah, I remember that.
So
that's a huge risk.
But exactly. So with the yo-yo stroller, were you working with them directly, or was it through Lux Group? Did they hire your company?
They hired Lux Group.
They did.
They hired Lux Group to work with them, to build and help them. At that time, I didn't leave one company to go to another. I was like, let me just.
You kept both, so you were still at Stoker, or no?
No,
you couldn't do
I had
that.
left Stoker. No, I wouldn't do that.
So how did you go from working for these big companies? Let's say you were making enough money you basically were supporting your kids, your family, and to just stop
the income.
Did that scare you? Like, you just literally left that corporate world and were like, I'm just going to start my own. Just tell us a little bit about that. Like, what made you do that, basically? Like, what?
Opportunity.
Okay.
I saw like an opportunity in a lot of companies that didn't know how to do business in Latin America. Okay. And I knew that was like a big strength of mine, because relationships and connections and distributors that I've worked with and met with, throughout, 7-8 years. Yeah. So I just kind of felt I was going to be okay. Right. I said, oh, you know what? Like, there's enough things going on that I can keep myself going at the minimum, at least what I was making, before. Yeah. And that's what happened. Actually, it was like, I was able to build enough business to make what I was making. So, and throughout the years when I had Lux Group, it was like, there was some customers that you held on for a couple years, or some that kind of went away, and whatnot. But, you were always able to find new ones and new opportunities and things like that. And it worked out, and that's when another guy that worked at Melissa and Doug with me had gone to Jazzwares to lead their U.S. specialty division. And he just out of the blue had called me because they were looking for someone to manage their LATAM business. And he just was like, hey, are you interested in this? And I said, I don't even know like who that is. And I was okay at the time, so I wasn't really looking.
Was it the same guy that introduced? Okay,
no, it wasn't the same one introduced Stoker. This is another guy.
People that you've met. That, I mean, if somebody's recommending you for a job, like just a regular coworker, that's a big deal.
Yeah, that's what it was. I mean, it was just because we showed together when I was there. They saw like we had success. Melissa and Doug. I said I was. At the time, I was one of their top salespeople there. So he's like, oh, Arthur would be a good person for this position. Yeah. And it was at the time, it was like a director of LATAM, director of sales for LATAM. Yeah. So I went. They flew me to Florida because the headquarters was in Florida. I met with the president of the company at the time, and we spoke for a good hour, and they offered me the job on the spot. It was just like, wow,
on the spot.
That's amazing.
She offered me the job, and of course I'm like, let me think about it, because because at the time I was.
You're still doing with your company you were working with. Yeah.
Was there any way you could keep both?
No, I wouldn't. You can't do that. Like with companies, like especially bigger companies. Yeah. Like, look, the most important thing that we have is our time, right? Yeah. And I've never been a type of person that wants to do too many things all at once, because then you don't do it well. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like for me, it was like, okay, I don't want to lose Lux Group, right? And I wanted to try to see if there was a way to keep it going, like whether it be through my wife or whatever it was, but there was no way for me to continue to do it managing other companies if I was going to have this opportunity with this company. So I decided at the time to say, okay, I'm going to give this company a chance, right? Because I see an immense opportunity here. Yes. And I feel like this could be the best thing and the right thing for me at the time. And then the Lux Group, what I did was I kind of worked with my wife. And at the time, she was just working as like a office manager at dentals, right? At dental offices.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's been in dentistry for, 18 years. And I was like, look, why don't you like leave that job, okay?
Right. Yep.
And start your own consulting business for dentist offices and use Lux Group. Because Lux Group was essentially a consultancy company.
Yeah. Right, so it's the same.
So it's the same thing, but now like you get to do that and you get to work for yourself. And I'll never forget this. So I sat with Mervette and I helped her build a PowerPoint presentation to her boss at the time, which was the owner, this doctor. He was the owner of this office.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how crazy life is, right? They were paying her, I think it was like 60 grand or 65 grand or whatever it was, right? Anyways, and I said, okay, let's build this presentation to show that you should be making six figures. Because I always felt like in life, once you like made 50 grand, you're like, oh yeah, like, okay, then you made 75, right?
Yep.
And then the next thing is always like, all right, I want to be in that six-figure category, right? Like that was always like the thing, right? And then you want to go more, of course, right?
Yeah.
But when you get to that six figures, I told her, I was like, okay, it's a whole different ball game, whatnot. So I go, let's build this out. We built out this presentation. She said basically like, this is what I feel like I'm worth. She was managing actually multiple offices for him. It wasn't just one. And the guy like literally was like, no, like, I'm not going to do it. So I told her, I was like, put in your time, give him a month or whatever it is and go do your own thing, and she did. Which is great.
And it worked out amazing.
And it worked out. So Lux Group lived on through her, essentially.
Yeah. So, because we went a little bit all over the place. So at that point, you're no longer with, obviously, Julian's mom. There was no marriage there. You did get married. You had 3 daughters. So at this point, you have 4 kids. Mm-hmm. Then you got divorced. And then you remarried your now wife, which I love. And, I just think certain people come into your life and she's exactly what you needed.
Yeah.
Like she really, I don't know what it is. It's just like the loving, she really like takes care of you. And I also think she keeps you grounded a little bit.
Yeah.
We all need that in our lives, right?
You do.
Of course.
And, here we
keep
are.
me grounded too.
But now I wanted to get into what you're actually doing now, because I think you touched based on Jazzwares and now you're working at Jazzwares. But really, now tell us what you actually do.
Do you work for Santa Claus? Do you really make the toys? Like Luna says.
I do, yeah, absolutely. I work for Santa, absolutely.
There you go.
I mean, basically, kind of, right?
No, yeah. Look, I'm now an executive in the company, right? So I'm an SVP there. I look after the entire international business for the company outside of what we call like the G5, because we have an office in London. So I have a counterpart there that looks after the UK, Germany, France, Spain, Italy, and whatnot. But outside of those markets, I look after Canada, Latin America, Central Eastern Europe, Middle East, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, all falls under my umbrella. So, one of the things that I talk about all the time is like when I started there in 2017, we had a team of 3 people. And
wow, that's it.
3 people. That's all we had was 3 people on the international team. And today, fast forward 8 years, and we now have 65 on my team, right? Just
That's
on my
crazy.
team. The company, we have over, I think we're over 1,100 now and whatnot. But
so, do you take care of all of the international? Like, I keep saying sales because I just feel like you've always been like sales, but I think you've grown beyond just sales.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that for us, or for me, we look after multiple departments, right? So within the international business, we look after marketing, we look after operations, we look after business intelligence, planning, we look after, and then sales.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's a 360 approach to the business. Obviously, this is a much bigger business, right, than any business that I had previously managed, right, in my career. But it wasn't at one point. 8 years ago when I got there, it wasn't. It was just I think at probably at another company, I was probably managing a larger revenue stream, right?
Do you think you were a big part of that growth?
Yeah, I think all of us. I think the people that been there, obviously, we're all part of that, right? I think any company that grows, I think when you have key individuals in key positions like I obviously have today, yeah, you like to think so, right? You like to think that you're part of that growth. I don't own the company, so I hope that they feel that way, that I've been a big part of the growth that we've had. But I also feel like the having the numbers and the people that we have, that'll tell you, right? Going from 4 to 65, right? That's going to tell you. Or 3 to 65, that's going to tell you, the growth that we've had. But we've also been very blessed and fortunate along the way, and we were able to sign some really key licenses. And then obviously with the acquisition from one of the companies that we acquired came Squishmallows. And then just a couple of years ago, we were acquired through an acquisition that we were a part of. We were acquired by Berkshire Hathaway.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you are around lots of executives, lots of like these, senior people in these huge companies. I remember visiting you at like a trade show, and I think you were running off to meet with like Disney or Walmart and some of these huge companies. How does it feel to be in those rooms? I mean, you just turned 40 years old. I can't imagine there's a lot of people your age in that room.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think that for sure, I didn't just turn 40, by the way. I'm 41 now, but
okay,
thank you,
but
you just turned 40 last year.
Thank you,
we just celebrated last year, so.
Well, yeah, no, listen, I've been around some incredible people, but I deal with incredible companies on a day-to-day, right? So, I don't, Tati, like there's something about me that I learned many, many years ago, and I think you're the same, right? We don't always need to be the smartest person in the room, but I promise you that we're always going to be the ones that work the hardest. We tend to outwork everyone else. And it's just always been my mentality. Like one of the things that we didn't really talk about is like, how do you get that mentality? And I do believe like sports for me was probably one of the most important things in my life. Playing soccer growing up, I learned a lot of my leadership, for instance, skills playing soccer. Like every team that I was a part of, like I wanted to be the captain. I wanted to lead people, right? But I also feel like see, there's leaders and there are managers.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Like there's a big difference.
There's a huge difference, right? And I've always felt like for me, like I wanted to be a leader. Like meaning, if someone told me today, hey Arthur, we need you to go clean the toilets because it's going to be better for the company. I'm going to go clean the toilet. And I'm going to do the best job that I can, clean the toilet, regardless of my title or my position.
Yeah.
Right?
No matter what.
And that's how it is, right? And that's the thing. And as a manager, sometimes people are like, hey, I was asked to clean the toilet, but you report to me. Can you go clean that toilet?
That's
right?
not a leader. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you want to set the example, right? You want to set the tone. You want to set the example. And one of the most important things I think as a leader, you want to touch people, whether they continue to work for you or they don't. You want people to always think of you in a positive light. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is that till this day, not everyone, but till this day, I have people that I've worked with, even in the last 5 years, that are no longer working with me or my team, and they've moved on to different companies, different careers and whatnot. And I still get text messages from them to say, hey, thank you so much. It was always like such a pleasure working with you. And, and honestly, there's some people that like we've fired, that still reached out to you, and you're thinking it's like a bad example, right? Like you think like, wow, like, man, these people must hate me, but they're like, no, because at the end of the day, like we're good people, right? And me, like I always look after any business like it's my own, right? So even though I don't own the company, I treat it as if it's my own baby. I treat it as if like
owner mentality.
Exactly, right? And that's I think the difference is like how we also communicate with people and how we treat others and whatnot. You want people to want to work for you, right?
Right.
You like when you're playing soccer, like you want your team to believe in you so that you can kind of go to battle together, right? True. And you win as a team and you lose as a team.
That's
right?
it. Yeah.
So I've taken a lot of those things that I've learned in sports in my career and implemented it, into like the business life. And that's why, like, no matter what meeting I'm in or what, who I'm meeting or who I'm dealing with, like, I don't ever feel like I don't belong.
Right.
So it hasn't changed, like that hasn't changed for you. Because for me, I feel like when I think about it, like sometimes when she tells me or I see that like you're meeting up with these big people that I don't think in my life, I always feel like I'll probably never even see them. And seeing you close to that's just such an inspiring thing that when I think about it, I'm like, I used to work with that guy, even though you're my brother-in-law and obviously I get to see you, but it's just knowing you and meeting with these people. It just makes you believe that anything you put your mind to it, you can get to. But in my head, I'm just like, do you ever stop and wonder and just think like where you were? And the time, like, she said you wrote this note to your mom that you thought that basically like, oh, your life could have been over.
Well, I almost think that note came about the day you actually sent us a picture of you meeting Warren Buffett. And you had like that picture, and I don't know, like I got really emotional seeing that picture because I'm like, wow, that's, we were immigrants in this country, didn't speak English, and now you're in a room with Warren Buffett.
It was honestly,
it's inspiring.
I mean,
it's
it was the craziest thing. When I saw it, it brought back a lot of memories. And I'm thinking like, my God, man, this guy, like literally, worked his ass off to get where he is, and to see that today, it's very, it's inspiring, and it's amazing that, like she said, coming here as an immigrants, with nothing. And this is why, people need to see it too, that we come here, we're hungry. We're here to work. We're not just here to, what people say and all that. We're here to like do better for ourselves. Yeah. And that's what everybody needs to see. And that's why we call it risk and hustle. You risk and hustle at the same time.
You take
and that's
big
why
risk, but you also have to hustle, because I know how much you put into work.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think that, there's a misconception about the American dream, right? Yeah. Like the American dream can be just that, can just be a dream. Yeah. And we dream every day. We're dreamers, right? Mm-hmm. But dreams don't come true if you don't actually put the work and the effort, right? It just doesn't happen. Right. We all know we have to work really hard. And I think people like us, as you said, like, because we were immigrants, right? We're all citizens now, but, we love this country and we love everything that this country has been able to provide and give to us, which is the reason our parents came here to begin with, right? To give us that opportunity that we keep talking about. That's why they came here, right? And, I didn't want to squander that, right? Now, like along the way, it wasn't easy, which touched on a lot of things. There was a lot of obstacles. There were many things that we dealt with, but we just go through it. I think at the end, though, guys, like we're humans and we're flawed, and I'm flawed, right? And I think whenever you guys say these things, like, wow, like I'm like, awed and inspired, like I have my own flaws. And I think one of probably the biggest flaws that I have, even just sitting here thinking about this, is like, I don't appreciate things enough. It's like, I try to live in the moment, but very quickly. I have this thing in my mind that I'm always thinking, 3-5 years down the road, right? Yeah. I'm not even thinking about like tomorrow. And that's a flaw. Like, because a lot of times I'm telling you, like, I don't enjoy the moment as much as I should enjoy the moment. Right. And like, in meeting like Warren Buffett and all that, like, well, it was incredible, right? It was a moment. It was incredible. Meeting Bill Murray, like that was
funny.
That was super cool. Like, that was awesome, right? Like it was like, oh my God. Yeah. Like Ghostbusters, like what a legend, right? Like talking about Groundhog Day.
Think
right?
about where light takes you. That's insane.
Like, like just things like that were like super cool. But I've never looked at like people like of that aura or of that talent, or be it celebrities or be it who, like I never looked at them with an eye that they're not human. Like to me, they're human. And
right. They're just
they're flawed. They're just extremely talented individuals that, like, by God, like I wish I had a tenth of their ability in what they've made successful for them, right? Yeah. So I just I don't know. Like it's nice to hear that you guys feel that way about me. Like I appreciate it, but it's also like, again, like it's hard. I feel like as I get older, I feel like, man, I'm not appreciating things enough.
And I think that's when you do have to slow down and really take it in and you've come a long way. I mean, it's a big deal to be in the position that you're in. And that's a lot of hard work. Like you say, like how many miles are you flying a year? Like what does do you work 9 to 5?
No, I work 12, 13, 14 hour days sometimes, right?
But I think that's the stuff people don't understand what it takes to get to that level. You know, it's 9 to 5 is very basic. Like, does anybody that reaches that level of success, I don't think a 9 to 5 is ever realistic.
Well, I think most successful individuals, they work so they don't have to do a 9 to 5, right? But I also don't want to take away from the people that do the 9 to 5, because in life you need them both, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
You have that, right? You have to have the individuals to help, and not everyone has the same mindset. Not everyone is, like we talked about.
And it's okay.
And it's okay. Like we talked about earlier in the podcast, was like, okay, see the human being, not the human doing, right?
Yep.
We said about, take care of yourself first.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I, need to start doing better for myself as well. Is like really like, okay, taking care of myself first so that I can then continue to take care of, those around me.
Right.
But it's not easy, right? Like I think like we all deal with, with challenges, and we deal with things on a day-to-day that
Daily.
That we're not sometimes expecting and whatnot, but we still have to deal with it. We still have to put on a smile.
Yeah.
Look, our grandma passed away 2 weeks ago now, probably, right?
Yep.
I could tell you right now, not a single person on my team knew about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I didn't take the day off. I still, went through my meetings, put a smile on my face and whatnot, right? I might get into a fight with my wife, right? I'm not saying I do, but I might. Yeah. And I'm still going, I'm still working, I'm still putting a smile on my face.
No excuse.
No excuses.
Right.
I'm not, and that's the thing. Like, I never try to make excuses.
Right.
Like, I don't put obstacles in my way, right? Because there are enough things externally in life to bring you down.
Yep.
I don't want to be an additional obstacle to myself.
You gotta block the noise.
Yeah. Like, do you remember, I think it was like a couple of years ago, like, Matthew McConaughey had like his Oscar speech. Yeah. And I love that, right? Yep. When he's like, everybody's always asking me who you're chasing. Yep. He's like, well, I'm never going to catch up to that person that I'm chasing. Yeah. Right. Because it's me. I'm chasing me. I'm chasing me. Exactly. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15. And like, honestly, you think about this, right? Yeah. Wow. Like, I just got goosebumps, by the way. Like, you think about these things and you're like, oh my gosh. It's so true for people like us that have that forward thinking mentality, that, we want to be the best, not in the world, but the best at everything that we do. We do.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I always say.
But once you get there, what's next? Right.
Like, I don't think you ever get there.
It's never. I feel like it's never enough though, no matter what we do, which I also feel like we got to stop what we were talking about earlier. I don't think we look at things we have accomplished enough, because there's times where I just like, we're so much in the go, and we're just doing things, and like you said, I don't think we appreciate ourselves enough, and I don't know, sometimes what I'm trying to say is like, I don't even know how to do that, because I sit around sometimes and I look around, because I see, like, thank God I have a healthy family and everything that we have around, but I've kind of stopped learning how to enjoy it too, because I'm always like, my head is like, okay, what's next? What do we do next? Instead of just kind of like trying to figure out like, okay, well, why don't we enjoy this a little bit?
But will we ever be content? I think is, because I've spoken to people that, they bought their first home and that's their forever home, and they're happy with that. And they're just working towards paying off their mortgage, and they're waiting till 65 so they can retire. And that's it. Like, I can't say I love my house that I'm in, but I cannot say that it's my forever home, right? Like, do you feel like that? Like, can you stop and say, like, this is your forever home, you're comfortable exactly where you are? I just feel like you're always wanting to grow.
I think that the biggest problem that we as human beings have today is actually that every time that we assimilate content with material things.
Yep.
That is like literally like without you even wanting to or thinking about it, right? You talked about being content and then you equate it to like
a house,
right? Or like the dream car or this.
Exactly.
And that's the thing that like for me, like don't get me wrong, you guys know me, like I love nice things.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
And I work hard for it as you guys do as well, right? But I actually think, and this is one of my personal goals for like 2026 is like I need to start being content with myself and being okay and confident that whatever I have inside of me is enough. Not what I'm buying or paying for or this, that's enough because that will never be enough.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
You guys came here to my house on Monday morning or Monday night, into Tuesday morning. And on Tuesday morning, we're talking and I'm like, my house is not big enough, right? Like I want to.
I know. I was like,
right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to get, I'm like, I want to get a bigger house,
right?
But that's the thing, right? Because we're flawed, and that's in our mentality, like you just said. It's never enough, right?
Yeah.
It's never enough for us.
Well, we talked about, remember, like having cousins over, and I'm like, well, do you have enough room for everybody? But growing up, we all slept on the floor in a 1,000 square foot apartment, and we found room, and there was like 4 different families there.
Now we want to have room for everybody.
What, you have like 4,000 square feet, 4,500, and there's a bathroom in every room, and here we are like we can't find a place to put some.
And look, I'm not saying that like you shouldn't get what you want because you deserve it and you work hard for it, but be content with yourself first. Yeah. That's what I mean about myself is like, a lot of times I'm not content with myself, be it for whatever reason, right? Because sometimes if you're also not content with yourself, then you start to fill those empty holes that you may have with material things, right? Yep. And that's why, I want the nice car and I want the nice home and this. Well, we already have that, right? We have these things already. But what I don't have is like what I feel like internally. I don't feel content, right? Even though I have a great career, I have many great blessings in my life. It's not like I want to change that, but I want to work on myself and being content, because when you do fully content in your heart, be it spiritually, be it religiously, whatever it is for you, right? Like that is important to me as I go into 26. The materialistic things, we're always going to love, and we're always going to, as long as, we continue to have it, right? What did Biggie said, right? More money, more problems. More
problems.
Right.
So, but
it's a quick fix.
Yeah, but let's focus on like being content, with us. It's like I say to Mervet, like every year around the holidays, we do so many subtle but nice things, right? Like went out to breakfast last week with her friend, and the bill's $115, right? So I leave $100 tip. Right, like
which made a huge difference
massive.
For that waitress.
We do this every year. We go out to a nice restaurant. The bill is $300. I'll leave $300, and they're like we've had people come up to us and hug us to say you literally just made my Christmas. Right. I feel so much joy, and I'm not just saying this to you guys like just to say it because we're on a podcast. Like I truly do. Okay, like I have this thing where like I get so happy seeing other people happy.
I know.
Because I know, right, what we didn't have growing up. I know the struggles that we've had. And I'm not sitting here by any means saying we were poor, because I don't know what poor is, to be honest, right? Like I never, knock on wood, my parents never, struggled to put food on the table. They just hardworking people, but by no means were we well off. I talked about Salvation Army. Like, man, those were some of my happiest days. Tati and I going into Salvation Army and picking out toys for $1.
We were so excited.
The experience and
we slept in, when we first moved to America, we slept in a closet with 2 little twin beds in it, and it was cozy. And
will our kids ever know any of that?
Well, I guess that's the next question, right? Like, do you think our kids will hustle and work as hard as we do?
I don't know. I think the world is a lot different. I think the world is a lot different than than it was for us when we were growing up.
Or do we think that though? Do we think that? Because I feel like our parents say the same thing. And I think everything is just changing so much that we might think that like, hey, listen, they're not going to work as hard. Maybe they're not going to work as hard, but they're probably going to work smarter. With the technology and everything that they have nowadays, we got to start thinking that way. So, because also at the same time, we got to stay positive, because the more we think, because I keep saying the same thing, I'm like, it drives me crazy because...
Well, do we just give things to them too easily? Like, are things just coming to them easily? The opportunities?
We do, because we didn't have it.
Right.
We didn't have it, and we always feel like because we didn't have it, we want them to have it. Now, is it right or wrong? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not for me to say if it's right or if it's wrong.
Yeah.
You know, I think for me, it's actually more about, as our kids get older, if they are going to do something that they're going to be happy and content with,
yes.
Right? Like, one of the things that I don't want to do is like put the pressure on my kids the way I felt like I had the pressure growing up of like, you got to be a doctor, you got to be to me, like,
it's too much.
Yeah, I feel like I just want them to be good humans who contribute to society in a positive way.
Right.
Absolutely.
Whatever that means. Like, honestly, like, I'm no longer in a mindset of like, I want I want the best for my kids, right? But like we just said, like, to each their own. Everyone has a different path in life, right?
Yeah.
I can't expect all my kids to have the same passion and drive and ambition that I think I have. Like, I may have some that will, and there might be others that don't. But just because they don't, it doesn't make them a failure. And the problem is, like, I've noticed this even with some of my older kids, they'll look at you and think like, you're successful, and they'll almost start to build like a bit of an anxiety in themselves that like
they're trying to reach.
Exactly. They need to do the same. And we grew up with that with our own, like our brother in a way I felt like was like that, like just kind of like always looking up at like, trying to like almost like chase that drive or
and
whatever.
Not taking a moment to really realize what he wants to do and what's going to make him happy.
Yeah, and that's all I want. I was like, I have one of my kids that said to me, they go, if I could just move to New Hampshire and like live in the woods and, and like not be bothered, like, then that's what I want. I said, listen, if that's what you want, but you just make sure you work to get there.
Yeah, to get there, because you still need money to get there.
You still need to be able to provide and be able to do that. So I don't know. And honestly, guys, like for me, as I said to you about being a flawed, human being, I think that's something I need to work on, is also like just being a better, parent. Like I'm so busy, and again, the sacrifices that I make, I don't think that I'm like, the perfect parent. I try to be there as much as I can and do the let's say the physical presence as much as I can on things, but I might also have situations where one kid, thinks that I do more for another, or I'm there more for the other and whatnot.
Yeah.
And that's sad. Like, I don't want my kids to ever feel that way, but I also, can't sit here and say you're wrong. They're perception versus reality. If that's their perception, then it's my job to change that, perception. Sure. Right. So, it's, I'm not going to sit here and just be, all like cookies and cream and rainbows and unicorns, because it's just not the reality. It's just not the reality. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there that have, similar responsibilities that I have. And sometimes I promise you, like, they don't really have anyone to talk to. They don't know what it's like. I talked to someone about this that works with me who's also, high up. You don't really have a lot of people to talk to the higher you go in your life and your career. And sometimes it feels like, you're at the mountaintop. And by no means am I saying that I'm at the mountaintop above everyone. But that feeling that you have sometimes, you also realize that the higher you're up, the more you scream, the less people hear you.
Yep.
Right. So it's like, it's great, but I don't have a soundboard, right? Like, my wife, I joke with her that she still doesn't know what I do either, right? Like, so she's like, I know it's important, but so it's, but it's tough. Like, dealing with that, being a dad that travels, as I said, 100 nights a mile a year, 150,000 miles, if not sometimes even 200,000 air miles, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. But I'm not the only one. And imagine how many like single mothers out there that do that too, right? Or in fathers.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, it's definitely tough. Well, as we wrap up, obviously 2025 and start 2026, you did talk about some of your goals. Yeah. Is there anything super exciting happening at Jazzwares that you're able to share?
No. No.
Good one.
Okay. Yeah, well, I tried. I have to try and see if we can get any exciting things that's coming out in the toy
Any
world.
stocks we can buy that we can't afford?
Definitely not. Definitely not. No.
What is so your focus for 2026? You said it's going to be a lot of like personal. Do you have any big goals this year?
I mean, I haven't sat down to really write down big goals. I think that just the general goals, like as I talked about a lot, is just trying to be a better version of myself than I was in 25. Right. If you ask my wife, she'll tell you like you need to be more patient. And I'm like, yeah, it's probably true. And the funny thing is, like at work, I'm very patient, but when it comes to my home life, I'm not, right? So how do I emulate?
It's like
that?
You have two personas, like basically it's when you're at work, you're a different person. And then when you're at home, and it's hard. Honestly, it really is hard to deal with that. Like I'm the same way. And sometimes it's one of those things that I think we try to work on, especially with our kids, because it's the same thing. As you said, you come home sometimes and your kids are trying to talk to you and our mind is still there.
At work and you're still not, like you said, not present. I think that's a big deal. Even though you're at the soccer game, are you present? Are you scrolling on your phone, answering emails? Are you doing those things?
No. When I'm at soccer games, like I try to do my best to be present, especially on the weekends. Like on the weekends, I do try to be present. The problem is like in the weekend, sometimes you're so drained from the week.
From all the work.
That you become even boring to a certain degree.
Yeah,
right?
you just want to relax and do nothing. And you know that, you got to be present for them and try to do things with them.
Well, you joke about selling coconuts on an island. Could you ever retire like that?
I think I could.
I couldn't see.
You think you could retire on an island and do nothing?
Well, I definitely will say that. So Mervet and I went to Hawaii for the first time this year, right? Which is kind of mental that I've been to 65 countries, and yet one state in the U.S. such as Hawaii, which is always like one of the most beautiful places, I've never gone. Right. So for her 40th, we went to Maui, and out of all the places that we vacationed over the last 10 years and everywhere we've been, we both literally looked at each other and was just like, we want to retire here, right? So that's an island, right?
That's amazing.
Okay.
Now, whether or not I can afford to retire there is a different story because Maui is very expensive, right? Yeah. So, God willing, continue to work hard and whatnot. I would love to. Yeah, I think, Tati, the selling coconut on the beach thing is more of a metaphor, right? It's more about exactly. It's more about just simplicity in life, and I do want to have that day where I'm not actually chasing something, right? I'm really like, I'm content. I'm happy with everything that I have, and I just want to leave. I just want to be chill. I just want to just live a simple life, and just if I can wake up every morning. I always had this dream in my mind of like a house where I can leave my doors wide open and I have those like sheer curtains, sheer curtains I'm talking about.
And you just walk in and out. Yeah,
and the wind is just like, blowing in and out.
Yeah.
And you're just like, you could just sit there and lay in bed and, although I don't know about laying in bed because, Mervet would want the doors closed because of the bugs. She's just scared of bugs.
Well, that's why you have one of those beds with the nets around.
Exactly.
Right? So then you can do that.
So I've always had that vision, right? And I think that's the other key thing, right? Is having vision. I'm sure you guys know Helen Keller. Helen Keller, said that, she'd rather be blind and not have vision.
Vision, yep.
Right? So
without a vision, there's...
Yeah.
I always say that too. You got to have a vision for everything you do.
Yeah. So you would retire. You think that would be a goal in life to retire one day?
Yeah, I think everybody should have a goal to retire. It doesn't mean that, you don't have passive income, you don't have investments and things like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would love to retire. I don't think I want to be like, Warren Buffett and retiring at 92, 93 years old, right?
Oh, yeah. He's retiring this year, right?
Yeah.
So do you think there will be some big changes in the company with his retirement?
He's going to live in the same house.
No, I don't think so. I'm not close enough to know, but I don't believe so.
Right.
No.
All right. Well, I think that's it. Anything you want to add?
No, guys, thank you very much for
thanks for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course.
You're our first guest.
Let's do it again sometime. It was a lot of fun, actually.
All right. This
Sounds
is good.
good. Maybe it'll be our
start.
yearly tradition. We close out the year together.
Sounds good. I mean, we're together, so sounds good.
There you go.
Keep doing it.
Well, thank you for our first guest, Mr. Arthur Ferreira. And till next time, with Risk and Hustle, Tatiana.
And Val, thanks, guys. Make sure you follow, subscribe.
Yeah, all the above and everything else. Happy New Year, actually.
Happy New Year, absolutely. And make sure you believe in yourself and become content with yourself.
Yeah.
Have a good day, guys.
Good. Bye.